That bar of soap sitting in your shower right now is something you've probably never thought about once. But go back more than a couple thousand years, and it basically didn't exist. Not for washing your body, anyway. And yet people still swam, sweated, worked outside all day, had bodies that got covered in grime just like ours do. So the problem still had to get solved somehow. Here's how. Okay, so picture this. No running water in your house. No shower. You've been outside all day, farming, walking miles, sweating in the sun, and there is no bar of anything waiting for you at the end of it. Just water, if you're lucky enough to live near a clean source of it. And water alone doesn't actually do that much. It rinses off loose dirt, sure. But it doesn't touch oil. And your skin is constantly producing oil. That's just what skin does. So sweat and dust and oil build up together into this grimy film, and plain water just sort of slides right off of it without really lifting it away. This isn't a small inconvenience, either. In crowded ancient cities, in communal living, this was about disease, about social status, about literally how you smelled to every single person you interacted with, every day, for your entire life. One historian I came across put it pretty bluntly: before soap became mainstream, there would have been a lot of people who just smelled really bad. All the time. So if water isn't enough, and soap doesn't exist yet, what do you actually do? You go with what water gives you. Rivers, lakes, communal bathhouses, full immersion. And for a huge stretch of human history, this was the entire hygiene routine. Get in the water, splash around, get out. It's the baseline every culture landed on independently, because it's the most obvious thing to try. But like we said, it only gets you so far. It rinses. It doesn't really clean. So people started adding friction. Sand, ash, pumice stone, clay. The Greeks would rub these straight onto their skin like an abrasive scrub, physically scraping grime off instead of just hoping water would carry it away. Picture rubbing a chunk of pumice, the same stuff you'd find at a spa today for your feet, directly across your arms and chest. It worked in a rough sort of way. But it's not exactly pleasant, and it's definitely not efficient. The Greeks and Romans figured out something that sounds completely backwards at first. To get clean, you cover yourself in oil. Here's the logic, and it actually holds up chemically. Oil binds to oil. So they'd rub olive oil all over their entire body, let it sit and work into the sweat and dust, and then scrape the whole greasy mess off using a curved metal tool called a strigil. Picture a whole bathhouse full of people, covered head to toe in oil like they've just been basted for a roast, all scraping themselves down with these bronze blades. It sounds absurd, but it worked well enough that it became a full ritual, a two-step process: oil first, then scrape, and it was actually more effective than water alone, because it was pulling oil-based grime off with oil, instead of trying to rinse it off with something that doesn't mix with oil at all. And it wasn't just for regular people, either. This was especially popular with athletes, who'd exercise, sweat heavily, then oil up and scrape down as part of their routine. Some accounts even say the scraped-off residue, sweat and oil and dust all mixed together, was collected afterward and reused as a kind of medicinal ointment. Nothing wasted. At the same time, some cultures had stumbled onto something that acted like soap without technically being soap. A plant called soapwort. When you crush the leaves and roots and mix them with water, it releases a natural foaming compound. Rub it between your hands and it actually lathers, a little bit, like a very mild, plant-based shampoo. Romans and later medieval Europeans used it specifically for washing hair and delicate fabric. It's basically nature's rough draft of soap. The ingredient existed in the ground the whole time, people just hadn't connected it to their own bodies yet. So here's the part that actually surprised me. Soap, real, actual soap, made from fat boiled with ash, already existed by around 2800 BCE, in ancient Babylon. That's thousands of years before any of this oil-and-strigil stuff. So why weren't people just using it? Because for most of its early history, soap wasn't made for bodies at all. It was used to clean wool and cotton before weaving, and sometimes as a medical treatment for skin conditions. Nobody was rubbing it on themselves in the bath. The idea of soap as personal hygiene took a genuinely long time to click. It's not until around the 2nd century AD that a Greek physician named Galen starts actively promoting soap for washing skin, not just fabric. And even after that, it stayed a luxury item for a long time. something for Europe's wealthiest households by the Middle Ages, not something the average person had access to. The everyday, cheap, mass-produced bar of soap you're picturing right now doesn't really show up until industrial manufacturing in the 1800s, right alongside people finally understanding germ theory, actually knowing why washing mattered, not just that it felt better. So the invention of soap and the adoption of soap were separated by literally thousands of years. The chemistry was solved almost 5,000 years ago. The habit took way longer to catch on. So next time you grab that bar of soap, or squeeze out some body wash without even looking at it, that's the end product of a few thousand years of people trying weird stuff. Rubbing themselves with sand. Basting themselves in olive oil and scraping it off with metal blades. Crushing up plants hoping for a little foam. All of it building toward something you now use for 15 seconds without a second thought. It's not just a bar of soap. It's the last step in a genuinely strange, thousands of years long experiment. If you had to choose right now, no modern soap allowed. Would you rather go the oil and scrape route, or just rub yourself down with sand and ash? Let me know in the comments. I genuinely can't decide which sounds worse.